welcome to this week's edition of WCS Sports Connection. I'm your co-host, Jeremy Qualls. This is my co-host, athletic specialist, football fanatic, you name it, Tate Mathews. Tate, it's hard to believe 2018-19 season is upon us. Football, 24 days away until the Jamboree. It's hard to believe, brother, but it's here.
And I'm glad it's here, and it has. This 2018 so far of this year has flown by, and we've already had our first week back from the dead period. I can put the shoulder pads on today. Had the past 2 days had to be in helmets again in football to get acclimated to the heat. Shoulder pads go on today. We'll be in full pads next week. Scrimmages, Jamboree right around the corner, and then games. It's going to be on. I went 24 days to the Jamboree. I'm excited, and if we already expected it, but if the first week of 7-on-7s are any indication, I think we got some teams that are going to make some noise 2018 season, so it's going to be very fun.
Well, if you like football, this show is specifically for you today because we're going to look at all the capsules of all the teams, talk about key returning players, key lost players, who's going to play what on the schedules, 7-on-7. Let's start first. First event of the football season is this week. WCS Media Day 2018. I love this event. It's one of those things we threw out there, see if it stuck against the wall. We've had a really good return on who shows up as far as media is concerned. I think the media is very appreciative of it. You've been to it. Tell me about it. Oh,
it's a great event, and it's like everything else that you all have been doing since you got here, and you keep growing this thing. And, I guess the highest compliment is, or the highest form of flattery is imitation, right? And so you've kind of patterned it after the SEC Media Days, things like that. And then you look around, there was no other school systems around here doing it. And now I think they're all doing it. I don't think they're doing it quite as well, but that's okay. But it's really picked up, and I think WCS Sports Conference was the trendsetter on it. But it's a great event, man. We're having it at the PAC Center, or the Performing Arts Center at Centennial, which is a beautiful facility, and it's so neat. We get to see the coaches talk a lot, but anytime I'm always amazed at how well spoken these young athletes are.
When you turn the lights on, man, it's a total different person, right?
Totally different person, but I mean how poised they are, and not all of them, but some of them, you get to see that personality come out in them, and it's a really neat deal. But it's getting them prepared. A lot of these kids are going to play on some level in college, and it's giving them experience in it. So I think any time that we can get these young people in front of the camera and the microphone, really doing those kind of things, and the Tennesseans here, the Heralds here, they're all here, and it's very well supported. It's a neat event.
Well, you got to think, if you're a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, you're sitting up on the stage, it's branded out, you got all these people looking at you, asking questions, cameras at you. You've got the news stations. We had 22 separate outlets show up last year.
That's big.
I don't know of another high school event that has that much outside of our Jamboree, but to have 22 separate media outlets there reporting, taking pictures, live look-ins on the news, you name it, they're all there. Those kids are up on stage. It's a pretty neat deal.
Oh, yeah, and I would be willing to bet that there's some colleges around here that wouldn't get 22 separate media outlets coming to cover them, And so it's fun. And then, as always, you have wings and rings there, so they get fed. It's just a good event. The thing I thought was really neat was, last year you had parents and fans of certain schools staying over to listen to the other schools. I thought that was pretty neat. That goes to show you the level of interest in it. Well, and of course, Coach Crawford's always going to be entertaining.
I mean, if you miss Coach Crawford, you probably missed the show. They're going to be on 10 to 15-minute intervals starting at 6 o'clock at Centennial High School. And, it's one of those things that just goes through. We go through each team alphabetically. They bring 3 to 4 players. They choose their player reps, which is always pretty neat. They like to bring some on the defensive side, some on the offensive side. Just to name a few, on Coach Crawford and Brentwood Bruins, you have Tank Starr, Charlie Harden, Avery Williams, and Jordan Nichols coming. You look at Avery Williams, he's getting a lot of traction as far as offers and things coming out to him. That'll be a question they'll ask. Hey, what are you, recruiting-wise, who's on the table for you? What are you looking at going? Just skip down to Independence. You go to Coach Blades, T.J. Sheffield, arguably the largest name right now in the WCS Sports Conference. A lot of questions will come to him about what his next step is in the future of his collegiate football career. Be pretty interesting. Those things right there are getting him prepared because obviously he's going to be playing on the next level at a very high level.
Right.
Those questions will come we go all the way back to Tyrell Dotson. I know you feel like that's a broken record, but, you know, he's coming out right now. They're interviewing him. Every media outlet in the country wants a piece of Tyrell Dotson. Why? Because he's going to be an All-American.
Without a doubt.
He's going to be a future NFL draft pick. And,
the question's not if, it's is he going to come out early.
Right.
I mean, that's how good he is.
So, you know, you look at those things, you go back to the past and when they went through this process of how neat it was and how funny it is if we could find that old footage and show them and know where they are now. So
that would be neat.
That's the first event coming up. The second event, we started this last year, is the Williamson County Jamboree. This year it's pretty new. It's the Wilco-Ruco Jamboree. It's over 2 nights. August the 9th will be at Nolensville. August the 10th is at Murfreesboro, Oakland. It's a pretty big event. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this segues into an even larger event that we won't discuss now, but hopefully potentially in the future of what this is going to look like. Let's start real quick. Let's talk about this. This is a dress rehearsal. You might get to see the starters play a series.
2 series.
Yeah, 2 series. It's very interesting and very fun and competitive, the first 2 series. But obviously you don't want to get anybody hurt. But let's look at the matchups. 5 o'clock, August the 9th at Nolensville. Representing the Wilco side, Fairview will be playing against Cascade.
Do you know the Cascade mascot? Walking horse territory.
I can't. It's
Champions.
I was going to say Chargers.
Champions, close.
Okay. 6 o'clock, Summit. Old Sparty takes on Blackman. Interesting matchup there.
Yes.
7 o'clock, Independence, Laverne. 8 o'clock, Nolensville, Centennial. We had to have one off. Obviously, they're playing each other. On August the 10th, which is a Friday night at Oakland, Brentwood at Riverdale. These are some pretty marquee matchups if you think about it. Franklin, Stewart's Creek, Page, Siegel, Ravenwood, Oakland. I would dare say that anybody that pays for a ticket for the 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock game will stick around for that 8 o'clock game.
Well, I would. That's you got two. You've got 2 semifinal teams from 6A football there, and I think 2 of the favorites in 6A to get back there this year. So that'll be fun to watch. And both of them, knowing those 2 coaches like I know them, I don't think either one of them are going to be afraid to show anything. I think they're going to be out to prove a point.
I think they're going to get after a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be fun.
All right, let's get into it, man. You have been around. You've seen the 7-on-7 action. Let's start Brentwood. Look at Brentwood High School. I want to mention this real quick before we get into 7-on-7 action. 2018 schedule. Franklin at home. Cane Ridge at home. Think about week 2. Cane Ridge, a finalist last year at the Blue Cross Bowl, got beat by Maryville. Cane Ridge coming back, one of the only 2 losses that Brentwood had last year.
And they're also they put Brentwood out, and then the next week they put Ravenwood out, and both of them really came. I mean, both of them could have gone either way, you know. So yes, they're very talented. They lost some big time players, but they've got some coming back, and they had some move in. They're going to be very talented. Then
Coach Crawford and company go on the road for the next 4: Dixon County, Stewart's Creek, Ravenwood. Battle of the Woods, man. September 14th. At Ravenwood. Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, you know, for so many years, that was the game in this district. A lot of times, whoever won that one usually won the region, district, whatever you want to call it, and then they would see each other again.
Held true last year, and
it came in the playoffs. I think Independence is going to have something to say about that, but that game right there,
big.
That's one of the big ones, if not the big one.
Nolensville at Nolensville. That's an interesting. You know, Brentwood's going to travel to Nolensville for the first time. All right, then they come back at home September 28th, coming off that Brentwood Ravenwood matchup, and then you got to play Independence at home. A little bit of a field advantage there for them, and then they have Father Ryan at homecoming at home. Marshall County away, who is a 4A powerhouse. That's no pushover there.
No.
And then you have Centennial at home for senior night.
That's a tough schedule. That's 6A football. That's the problem. You know, 2 years ago, you know, they go on 2-year cycles, and 6A football is tough enough, and when you win the 2 years before we start over a 2-year cycle, getting the schedule is really, really tough. And that right there, that's what we're talking about. You find nobody wants to play outside of district because everybody's looking for wins. That's a tough schedule.
All right, here we go. Dive straight into it. 7-on-7 action. What we know up to this point, I'll have some big questions for you to answer Go. Brentwood Bruins.
Well, Brentwood does a little bit different. They don't go to any of the big 7-on-7 tournaments. They didn't go to Riverdale, or they didn't go to Titans or Nolensville. But what they do is they throw every Tuesday against Brentwood Academy, at Brentwood Academy. Independence is there, Brentwood Academy's there, Nolensville there, and they did that last Tuesday. They'll do that this Tuesday, and then they'll throw with NBA tonight, Wednesday night, and they'll get some good work there. So obviously, if you paid any attention last year, I guess question number one, who's going to replace Carson Shacklett? Those are big shoes to fill. God, what a player he was, right? Dylan Stevens, senior, and then sophomore quarterback Cade Granzow. They're both competing right now, and they're both getting better. I think they both do things a little bit differently. Cade, obviously a big-time baseball kid, big guy, Judd's boy. He can make all the throws. So I don't think that question is going to be answered in the next week or two. Wouldn't be surprised if they both don't play. Here's what's exciting for both of them. You mentioned Avery Williams. You got him on one side. You got Chase Bishop on the other. Both of them, especially Chase.
Cause some problems for some people.
Well, I mean, it sounds funny saying that when you got T.J. Sheffield in the district, but, you might have the two guys. And then you got Holmes over at Ravenwood. But those two guys, can stretch the field big time. They're both burners on the outside. Bishop's only a junior. I think the jump that he's going to make from last year to this year is big. So they've got two burners, and then with what they do with the RPOs and things. So obviously those two have looked really, really good. And then Carter McKechnie's back, running back / wide receiver. He's kind of a utility guy that gives them a lot of options. So I think around them, the skill positions, I think this is as good as they've been, or could be as good as they've been in a long time. Skill positions. There's another wide receiver who's going to be a sophomore, Walker Merrill. He's going to be a player, man. He can run too. Only one ball, so he's going to be playing a lot on defense. But if they figure that quarterback thing out, you're going to see another potent offense.
Big question, and we're moving on. Defensively, C.J. Grissom, linebacker, they've always had really, really good linebackers, secondary players. What happens?
Well, C.J. Grissom, that's probably his biggest shoes to fill as with Carson. On the defensive side, C.J. was kind of that quarterback, tough guy, wrestler, right? He brought a lot of toughness to it, and a guy who found the ball. Right now, Sterling Ambrose is a young man. They're looking at that position. Got a few guys around them, but they've got more starters coming back on defense, or more people that played coming back on defense. But I don't know that they have as many explosive guys, but they'll find those. And that's the side of the ball Coach Crawford coaches. They'll be ready.
Centennial Cougars, we're going to look at their caps real quick. Coach Kreisky and crew coming in. Let's open up the season with a bang. So let's open the season with Ravenwood at home. That ought to be a good one, man, I'm telling you.
But remember who won that game last year? Centennial.
That's right. I had forgotten that. Ravenwood, Hendersonville, Independence, all at home, and then they go to Cane Ridge. Dixon County at home, at Riverdale, at Franklin. Here's an interesting note, October the 6th, at Hillsboro, playing that game at Vanderbilt. And then they host Summit for senior night, and then at Brentwood. Made it to the playoffs last year, made a late run, got beat by Cane Ridge in the opening round of the playoffs.
Nuts.
It's the first time I've been here that Metro absolutely owned us with a team. And Cane Ridge was good enough to do it. And hats off to them. Great team, class act over there, good coach, good things going on. Centennial Cougars, Coach Kreisky, what do we have in store for those guys? Key returning players. I've got one burning question for you. The question mark is out. I want to see what Ashari Hainsworth brings to the table. What have you seen thus far?
Well, that's what's fun. Obviously, Jario Wilson's coming back. Really kind of the big question marks right now in the early is they got 3 new guys, 3 transfers. Well, 2 transfers and then 1 new guy out. Shari Hainsworth, obviously one of the big parts of the basketball program. They're playing him. He's a big guy, but to show you how athletic he is, he's playing linebacker. Probably no surprise.
Is he anybody that you know?
His dad was a pretty good football player for UT and then Albert's son. But this to show you how athletic he is, he's playing linebacker, but he's playing wide receiver on the offensive side, and he's doing well. So first year out, since he's been in high school, obviously he's a big target. He can run. He's athletic.
He's probably what, 6'3", 200, 6'3"?
I'd say he's probably closer to 215, 220.
Let me ask you this burning question. You said he's going to end up playing potentially some linebacker. Game's quick. He hadn't played high school football. How fast do you pick those things up?
Well, I think my guess would be you limit what he's asked to do, right?
Okay.
Don't put him out there and
turn him inside.
That's right.
When they turn him inside,
put him in position to do the things that he can do well. Same thing on the offense. I mean, put him outside. You know, there's not very many 6 feet cornerbacks in college football. They're dang sure not very many in high school. He's athletic. He can catch. So first week, they're very excited about what he's doing. Grayson Marcel, the quarterback, he's transferred in. Big transfer for them. They're excited about him. Coach Kreisky felt like he got better every day. They played at the Riverdale 7-on-7. Did really well. And then another one, Alex Steele, running back linebacker, 6'3", 225 pounds. He's cousins to Curtis Steele. You weren't here yet, but you probably know that name.
Centennial Hall of Famer.
And was a great player. Alex has got a chance to be really, really good. So what does that do? You got really good running back, right? Well, you already had Trey Carlton. We know what he's capable of doing. Jariel Wilson. Now you got 3 of them, and that allows you to rely more on defense on Jariel, which they're going to need.
And I believe Jariel's got an offer from Austin Peay standing right now, if I'm not mistaken, which would be a phenomenal place for him. Go Govs on that. Congratulations to Jariel. Fine young man.
Yes.
Such a good advocate, not only for the WCS Sports Conference, but for Centennial and their team.
He played well in the Riverdale 7-on-7 too.
So I'm not going to ask you to make a prediction today on these teams. You're thinking right now, it's going to be interesting. You know, they finished the regular season, I believe, 5-5, and get beat in the opening round by Cane Ridge, which, you know, respectfully, obviously, if that team goes all the way and gets in the state championship game. But Coach Kreisky and his team, I want to say this: I look for them to be better.
Without a doubt, I think so too.
So
you know, and it's a lot of it's going to be how they look on their lines. But as we just mentioned, you know, with those guys coming back with. You know, they might have had the best 1-2 punch in the backfield with Jariel and Trey. Trey was just a freshman or a sophomore, right? So he's going to be a junior, and Jariel is going to be a senior. They're already explosive, like I said, with those guys. Now, you got to block for them. So if they can figure that out, they're going to be pretty salty.
Speaking of running backs, the next team, Fairview Yellowjackets, potentially had one of the best running backs in the mid-state area, any classification, last year. Obviously, we know all about him. He is also Male Athlete of the Year for the Wilcos.
If you had a best dressed, he might have won that too.
So, but he's no longer in the buildings for Coach Chris Hughes.
No.
So what's going to happen? What's going to happen for the Yellowjackets? What are they going to have to get back in the mix this year? Looking at their schedule, Page away, Battle of 840, August 17th. It's hard to believe that it's right here around the corner at Page. Home against White House Heritage, away at Stewart County. Have three-game homestand against Waverly, Camden, and Greenbrier. Then they go to Sycamore, at home against Harpeth, away at the Nest at Ravenwood, and then away at Cheatham County. Thoughts?
Well, like you said, fill in Darius
I
James.
love this game, though. I love this Ravenwood
The Ravenwood game?
Yes,
I wish we'd do more of it. You're right. I think it's good. And, you know, kudos to both coaches for scheduling. I don't know that Coach Daniels actually scheduled it.
I think
Coach Westman might have done it.
That's right.
But anyways, I think it's great. I mean, that's a risk for both of them, really. But
not supposed to lose to them.
That's right.
But when they win on the other side, it's so big. Snappies would be so full they couldn't get out of there.
Big time. Big time. So, tough schedule. You know, I don't know if people read it in the paper, but obviously Brock Harris has transferred in. He's going to be the quarterback. Cam Harris-Lusk moves from quarterback out to wide receiver and DB, which we know how explosive he was.
I think that helps him, though.
I think without a doubt. That was one of the threats, one of the pluses they had with him at quarterback. He was young, but the one thing he could do is they could move him out of the pocket, and he was a threat to run. They played 7-on-7 at the Titans and also at Montgomery Central. Brock looked really well. The problem he has right now, it's not a problem, is not throwing the ball. He can make the throws. He needs to learn the offense. And so he took a big step towards that last week. Cam Harris-Lusk looked really good at wide receiver. He's a guy who can stretch the field, especially on that level. And then Blake Russell looked really good on the defensive side, had several interceptions. So big shoes to fill. I don't think Fairview's rebuilding. I think they reload.
That's
you like that? That makes you feel better?
That's pretty stout. It makes me feel real good.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
I think they do.
You know, their record finished 7-3. You know, and people are like, well, they were undefeated the year before, but you weren't playing Ravenwood the year before. That game helps you get better, believe it or not. People don't want to, you know.
Well, and didn't Waverly get them last year?
Waverly got them.
They were a good football team now.
Come from behind, and then obviously Page beat them open at the 840 game.
That's a big win for Page.
But
that game, as always, they battle 840.
But they were missing a couple players there early.
That's right.
Don't forget that.
No doubt.
Darius James did not play for the first 3 games, maybe 4 games. So
he would have made came down to a field goal in the battle 840. He'd have made a little bit of a difference.
I would say he'd have made a lot of difference. But can't rely upon hypotheticals. What we do know right now is Franklin is looking to get back in the playoffs. Coach Donnie Webb, Dr. Defense, is trying to get in that gauntlet, man. You got to be one of the top 4 teams out of this 5-team group, 6-team group, and it is really, really difficult. Murder's Row here. Let's look at the schedule for the Franklin Rebels. They're at Brentwood and at Riverdale to start the season. They host Ravenwood, at McGavick, 3-game homestand against Independence, Hendersonville, Centennial. They're then at Oakland, home against Spring Hill, away against Dixon County. I mean, can we find a little bit easier non-conference games, right? But that's just that's the nature of the beast on 6A.
Without a doubt. They probably have the toughest opening 3 games, and if you'll remember last year, that Brentwood game was very close.
Oh, yeah. Could have gone either way.
That's right. And
you win that game, it may turn the whole season around.
For both of them, I think.
You're right.
Don't you? Yeah. So who knows, man? That's the thing in this district and in 6A football. You know, a couple of plays really can't swing it. But you know, different look, but it's still going to be the same thing. One interesting thing, Dr. Defense, Donnie Webb. We might have to start calling him Dr. Offense. He's going to call the offense this year, or be.
He's going to be cutting folks up by precision.
Heavily involved.
This way, that way.
Now, that don't
on
mean,
the ground.
That don't mean we're going to see like air rebel.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be
right.
precision cut up.
Yeah.
Here, here, here.
That's right. But be ready. You know, kind of like a few years ago when they had the big play, they got a young man named Chancellor Bright. Wide receiver. He's a big play capability guy. He's going to be able to give them a dimension they did not have last year. Josh Nichols is going to be. He took all the snaps last week at quarterback. He looked really good. So it's still going to be the same thing, but I do believe there's going to be a little bit more of a down the field presence. And then Matt Gacka, obviously, you know what a workhorse he was at tailback last year. For the first week, and something they're kind of putting in. He's been catching the ball out of the backfield. And you know, you think that sounds easy. There's a lot of running backs that can't catch the ball out of the backfield. So you just because you want to do that doesn't mean you can. He can. That gives them another dimension to their offense, keep them honest on that option. But I'm excited. You mentioned 6 teams. It's really 5. No disrespect to Dixon County, but more than likely, it's going to be 4 Wilco teams. And golly, I think Franklin's better this year. You mentioned Centennial got in for that 4th.
You think
one.
Ravenwood or Brentwood are automatics? You think they're in?
I think, probably.
So now you've got 2 spots to fight for.
I think there's a chance it comes down to Centennial Franklin again.
Between Centennial and Franklin.
And those are 2 really good teams.
You're missing Independence out of the
No, I'm saying I think.
You think the last spot comes down to Centennial and Franklin?
If we were picking right now, yes.
Okay. So you think the 3 lockup spots, which moves us into the next team. We're talking about the Independence Eagles. Coach Scott Blade looking to bounce back, 500 last year. That does not sit well at all in the belly of Coach Blade. Retooling some things, refining some things. Got a lot of pieces coming back. TJ Sheffield obviously there. Nate Cisco coming back as quarterback. You know, there's a lot of pieces there. Jake Huner, always. You know, the Huner boys have been around.
Seems like there's been one there for the past 10 years.
So what do we do to start off the year? Why not host Oakland? So that's what it starts with. Independence host Oakland and Summit Border Battles August 24th. That would be week 2. Remind you what happened last year at the Border Battle. First ever win for Summit, and they won it in dominating fashion.
Yes.
Centennial away, Hillsboro at home, Franklin away, Brentwood away, CPA away, Dixon County at home, Memphis East away, and then finish up the regular season with Ravenwood at home. We've got just a few minutes to go on Independence.
7-on-7s. They were at the Riverdale. They were at Nolensville. They've got 2 quarterbacks. Obviously, Ethan Cash is over at Summit now. Nathan Sisk. They both looked really good. Obviously, Nathan has a better grasp of the offense. He looked really good, man. He looked really good at Riverdale. I did not see him at Nolensville.
He's a recent commit to Idaho.
The Vandals,
there
baby.
You
the
beat
Vandals.
Me to it. Go.
Have you well, we'll talk about that later. He looked really good, man. Isaiah Collier, obviously we know TJ Sheffield, what he can do. He looked good, down the field presence, threat. You know, people really struggled with him. Isaiah Collier looked really good, but Nathan looked really good. Ethan looked good, big kid, strong, right? He's got to learn the offense, but I know Coach Blade was happy about both of them. You know, you mentioned last year the 500. I think Coach Blade, he's on record of saying that he feels like a lot of that was chemistry things. He feels like that's been fixed. We'll see. He was very excited about the offseason. So, TJ Sheffield, real quick, the Notre Dame thing, it's out there, so let's address it. Positives comes out of negatives sometimes.
Yep, absolutely.
He committed, came back and said they're not going to honor it. I thought the way he handled it, I don't care if anybody helped him write it or not. I thought the way the kid handled it, he's not a kid, he's a young man. I thought it was first class.
Not a lot of grown men that can handle it that way.
No, and then I saw him at Riverdale, man, and what a great kid. If you're not rooting for him, the good thing is he's going to play Power 5 football somewhere. But I just thought that was, you know, in the age of Twitter and social media, and you get mad and you pop off, that's how you handle it. That kid got more fans by the way he handled that than he will for any touchdown he scores.
Notre Dame doesn't honor it. They've gone a different direction. That's the nature of the beast. This is the corporations move on. That's just the way it is in this business. Right. And he could have easily thrown them under the bus. What does he do instead? He praises them and thanks them for the opportunities to go through the process that he went through. He'll learn off that. He'll get more mature off that process. So when he goes into this next visit to a Power 5 school, he'll know exactly what to be looking for.
That's right.
I mean, and it's going to be a matter of time before he lands. You know, early on in the process, Stanford was interested. You know, you had obviously Notre Dame. You've now got Syracuse that's popped in. You've got Louisville. You've got Purdue.
Which, remember,
I like this guy Purdue too.
Jeff Brom, man, they will win. And what does Jeff Brom like to do? He likes to throw the ball. He likes to throw it to a lot of people. That's Big Ten football. Your family can get there.
That's right.
I'm telling you, that's somewhere I would look.
So you look at this schedule. It's a tough schedule. Obviously, they're all tough. We got 1 minute, so let's discuss. 6-6. They get above 500 this year.
Yes.
They're above 500.
That first game's a tough one, though. Whew.
But
But that's what he wants.
Yeah, that's just what it is. It's 6A football. At some point in time, you've got to play Oakland. At some time, you've got to play Maryville. At some point in time, you've got to play these teams.
If you want to make it to the
If you want to make it, you know, or we can mask it with some cupcakes and throw-offs and say, hey, we finished 7-3 and got beat in the first round. That's not what he's about.
No.
We're here to get better.
And I think they're better on the, one place that got them a little bit last year was on the lines. They're going to be, remember, they had just come off 29-1 when they played that game last year. So they had a lot of line they had to replace.
A lot of new personnel. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So, well, friend, it's good to be back in the saddle, man. We got through halfway. Yep. Next week we'll come back. We'll look at the bottom half of these capsules. We'll talk about Nolensville, Coach Paul Derrick in his first year as the Knights head coach, Coach Rathbun at Page, Matty D, Ravenwood Raptors, Raptor Fast, and Old Sparty and Coach Coleman, and talk about G.O., George Odomegwu.
He looked good this week, too.
We got some great players, great teams to talk about. Thanks for joining us. Hey, be with us next week. We'll talk about these teams. We'll see you next time.
In late 2010, I entered a BMX dirt jumping contest and took a hard slam. And I'd done the trick 1,000 times. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. Now, I'm not telling you not to send it, not to go out there and get it done. But what I am saying is learn about brain injury and how to prevent it. Our sport is cool enough. You can wear a helmet. It's your brain. It's your future. You should know what's up.